What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I mention the Mahindra Scorpio? Is it its bold cinematic entries? Is it the sight of political convoys and police motorcades? Or is it just this idea of a very domineering, slightly robust, rugged SUV running all over the country? In all likelihood, it's all three of these things. Now, what if I told you that whatever you know about the Scorpio is going to permanently change, because what I'm about to show you is completely different from any Scorpio you've ever seen. This right here is the all-new Mahindra Scorpio-N. Technically that just spells Scorpion, but let's not get into that. The Scorpio-N is a dramatic evolutionary leap for the Scorpio brand, kind of in the same way that the Scorpio was for the Mahindra brand 2 decades ago. And everything about this car is drastically different, almost at a cellular level. So everything from the powertrain to its much larger, much more luxurious body, its chassis, suspension, alloys, everything is different from the current generation Scorpio, and that's probably why Mahindra has chosen to sell the current gen Scorpio, now badged the Scorpio Classic, right alongside this car, which takes on a very different segment. The Scorpio-N bats in the D segment SUV league now, taking on the mighty Toyota Fortuner at an introductory price for the top-end diesel manual version, which is about 19.5 lakh. This is designed to really topple the D segment as it is currently, because it's got that traditional ladder-on-frame chassis that you expect from robust off-road friendly SUVs. It's got a lot of infotainment features that we're going to get into shortly. It's much longer, it's wider, it's got plenty of space, 7 seats. So we're looking at a car that is now going to exist in a very different realm. Right, so what do we have in terms of powertrain? Well, the same options as the one you find in the Mahindra XUV 700 and the Thar. So we've got a 2-litre turbo petrol, and you've got one 2.2-litre diesel option in 2 different states of tune. Currently, I happen to be driving the top-end petrol automatic, which makes about 203 horsepower, and given that this is the automatic, we're dealing with about 380 Nm of torque, which is a substantial amount if you think about it. I mean, you know, just to be in that sub 200 horsepower league just gives this that added grunt that you need. And what's really surprised me is how smooth this 6-speed automatic gearbox is. Now, they haven't told us the price yet. That's going to be revealed later. But just from an urban city driving point of view, I'm quite surprised that the formerly agricultural and slightly rough and tumble Scorpio has been gentrified to this extent. Now, this is a very traditional ladder-on-frame SUV, unlike the XUV 700, which gets a monocoque chassis. And that'll really help differentiate the Scorpio, because now there's a bit of an overlap in terms of price and premiumness that there wasn't before. But with a ladder-on-frame chassis, yes, you do get that old school SUV body roll. You do have a top-heavy form, and so it's not as dynamic in cornering, but it doesn't really feel daunting either. And just the sheer amount of grunt and the palpable smoothness of this motor, compared to Scorpios of the past, I'd say even the vehicular noise levels have come down drastically, and that's something Mahindra has made a point of. Now, compared to the top-end diesel version, the petrol model is still relatively simpler. There are no multiple drive modes that come with the diesel. It's called Zip, Zap, Zoom. Really simple to remember. Zoom having like most amount of power. With Zip, it's limited in terms, I think, to around 130 horsepower, but we'll only really know how it feels when we get to drive the diesel, which is unfortunately not today. The petrol model, for that matter, is now going to be more popular, relatively speaking, than it was in the past. Yes, diesel will still be the lifeblood of this particular brand of SUV, but I think from an urban driving standpoint, the petrol really does tick a lot of boxes. even without driving modes, you don't really necessarily feel lacking in any way because of the sheer amount of power and torque that are most constantly on tap, just available at your disposal. Now, this being a ladder on frame SUV, it does behave like one as well, so you will get a little bit of fishtailing should you find yourself in a gravelly surface and just powering out of it immediately, and nothing that's not controllable. In fact, it lends character to the way this car drives, and it actually makes it a little more fun, especially in the rain. Mahindra's always placed a very strong emphasis on safety and safety features. So, as expected, much like the XUV 700, this too has a gamut of safety features going from, of course, standard ABS, but then there's electronic brake distribution, ESC, driver drowsiness detection, hill hold, hill descent control, a whole variety of things that you're not actually likely to find in competition, which is a lot more expensive. And the price band within which the Scorpio-N exists, Mahindra is making sure that it undercuts some C segment SUVs as well. So, with the starting introductory price of about 11.99 lakhs, this is more of an all-round package with the best bits of Mahindra's DNA and its developments in the last 20 years or so. Mahindra, what they've done essentially is take the Scorpio and say, okay, what are the best bits that have worked for us in the past? What are the best bits of technology? Let's not shy away, let's throw it all in. So I expect to see a lot of these on the road, just going by how it feels. If I have criticism, well, the steering does feel extremely light. So the electronic power steering on this thing does feel very light. And if I were to criticize anything about this car, I'd start there. Although, with big heavy SUVs, a lot of people prefer that kind of thing, especially in the Indian market. So I doubt that's really going to be a problem. If I were to teleport out of nowhere without any context straight into the cabin of this car, my first thought wouldn't be that I'm sitting inside a Scorpio. Presumably my first thought would deal with the fact that I've just teleported, but keeping that aside, you have something that feels a lot more premium than the Scorpio ever has, and yet there's this old school SUV feel about it because you've got this upright center console, dual tone dash, there's this new steering design, and Mahindra's crammed it with a lot of tech inside their 12.8-inch touchscreen, which gets their proprietary Adreno X operating system. So you've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, wireless connectivity, wireless charging, the works. There's a 3D surround sound system here. This is the top-end version, and as a result, you get optional 6-seat setup, which means you get captain seats at the back. Front, you've got a bit more space because this is, apart from just being longer and having a longer wheelbase, this is also a much wider car. So you've got these grab handles just to plop yourself inside. But you've also got a car that just feels extremely roomy and very spacious, and has a bunch of other gizmos, to keep you in the lap of comfort. So, it's a big step up, not just for Mahindra, but for the Scorpio in general. Well, after having driven this extensively in the wet, in the dry, on the road and off it, it's clear that Mahindra's winning streak will continue with the Scorpio-N. In fact, the only problem which they'll have is they won't be able to sell these fast enough because, let's not forget, the introductory price which they've just announced is only for the first 25,000 cars, which will fly off the shelves in the blink of an eye. Lately, the only real problem that Mahindra has had is that they're not able to supply its cars fast enough, with the XUV 700 and the Thar being in such high demand that waiting periods run up to 2 years. So if you're interested in the Scorpio, There's nothing else that you really need to worry about other than the fact that you might need to wait to get your hands on one, because with this car, Mahindra has taken the percolated essence of a lot of elements that have come to define the brand. So it is rugged, it is old school, it's pretty tough off-road, but it's got some great on-road mannerisms. So yeah, pretty much an all-rounder in that regard, and nothing else to do but clock some more miles